If we want to know what Anne Boleyn looked like, why can't we just exhume her? Because it isn't that simple. The UK has very strict laws when it comes to exhuming the dead, one of these being that it can only be exhumed between 4 AM and 5 AM. And you need to apply for a licence. And for royals, it gets even more difficult. We need approval from the king, we need approval from the church, chapel or cathedral they're buried in, and then we need approval from their local district council. Now, for Anne Boleyn and those buried near her, she was disturbed in the 1880s, and her remains were studied. Yes, 150 years ago, Anne Boleyn's skeleton and her skull had not turned to dust, but Catherine Howard's had. But they weren't disturbed just to see if they were there, they were disturbed because St. Peter's floor required repair. Also, if we look into the recent past of our kings and queens being exhumed, they aren't exhumed for morbid curiosity. There's a purpose, there's a good reason. Creating facial reconstructions isn't as new as some may think. I've said this before on my channel, the last person to be disturbed was in 1953, this was Henry V, and the reason they disturbed him wasn't for morbid curiosity, it was to salvage parts of his tomb. We have Richard II and Anna Bohemia, who were disturbed in the late 1800s, and they were disturbed because their tomb was in disrepair and people were putting their hands in and taking their bones. And quite often that is the case when monarchs are exhumed. They aren't exhumed for morbid curiosity, they're exhumed with a purpose, to repair their tomb, to repair the chapel, cathedral, church, etc. I do apologise if I'm disappointing anyone when I say that it's highly unlikely that we're going to exhume Anne Boleyn or anyone else just so we can look at their remains.